Work Besties, welcome back for a highly requested part 2 of workplace scams. Things that feel a little questionable in the corporate world, if you will. A red flag, perhaps. So let's dive right into it with number 1. Bring your own device, and specifically your phone. When a company requests or demands or requires that you have your work apps on your personal phone, so your email, any logins, HR systems, on your personal phone. That's interesting to me because 1, you're paying your phone bill, so that's an expense your company doesn't have to pay, and 2, it connects you to work 24/7. Seems questionable to me. If it's very, very necessary that you have a mobile device with work apps on it, should they be providing you a device themselves? Which leads me into my next question. What do you think? Are work-provided cell phones perhaps a little bit of a scam? And the reason I say this is because I think there's a lot of unwritten rule, unwritten expectation that comes with having a work cell phone, that you can be accessed, you can be contacted 24/7 whenever we need you. It's kind of like being on call without like getting paid for on call. So I guess that's more of a question for you. Bring your own device, that one feels like a red flag, but having a mandatory work device without, guardrails around it to be only used during working hours, does that feel like a scam to you or not? I go back and forth on that one all the time. This one is always, sat a little funny with me. It's basically the idea of micromanaging adults. So requiring you to have proof or explanations or give you permission for things from other adults. Let's get into an example. If you're sick and your manager's like, prove it, let me see a doctor's note. I know that there's certain places where it's like legally required after so many days, but that always feels weird to me. I had someone reach out to say that they were on a train system, so their public metro, to go to work, and they were commuting, and one of the train lines was shut down and there was a delay, and there was a train officer going around asking people if they needed a note or proof to show their bosses and companies that the reason they're late is because the train was late, and so it's an actual proof of like, here's why I'm late. That is next level to me. I forget where that individual was from. I'm trying to remember. But that's crazy to me that we're like micromanaging adults so much that we're not even like trusting them, that maybe they're just late one day, but maybe they're also gonna stay to make up that time. That feels a little strange to me. Or, I think we've all gone through this moment, especially maybe earlier on in our careers, where you're sitting in a meeting, and some meetings are very, very long, in-person ones I'm talking about. You ask to go to the bathroom. That feels weird to me, to ask another grown adult, hey, I have to go to the loo. Is that okay with you? Instead of just like getting up and going. So the idea of like micromanaging other adults' time. I mean, if you're not getting your work done, that's a whole other discussion. But if you're getting your stuff done, why do you need to be physically? This is another one. 8-hour work days. Those feel a little bit outdated. It's always kind of confused me why we base the amount of work someone does on the time that they're allocating or physically in a space and not actually the work that they're getting done. My philosophy, at least, with my team, is here's the work, get it done in however long it takes you, bearing in mind it needs to be good quality. And if it takes you 4 hours but takes someone else 5 or 6 hours, like, that's fine. I only care about the output of the work, I don't need you to sit glued at a desk till a certain amount of time to log off. Yes, be accessible till that time, but if you don't have anything to work on, well, that's probably on me because I need to manage your workload better. 8-hour workdays seem a little bit outdated to me, and micromanaging adults' time. So let's move on from this one, or I'm just gonna keep going down a rabbit hole. When companies refer to the employees, their coworkers, as family, very confusing to me, because a lot of families out there are quite dysfunctional, and I don't know about you, but I'm not speaking to my coworkers like I am to my family. And I don't deal with conflict with my coworkers the same as I might with my family. And I don't eat dinner every night with my coworkers like I do with my family. There's like so many differences that I'm curious to go back in time and figure out where that started from. Like, where was the first person, or why were they like, let's compare this to a family? That'll give us good buy-in. People will want to show up for us if they're showing up for their family. I'm curious where that comes from, and I know that that's a common one out there. If the expectation is that you're treating everyone at the office like family, there's probably some sort of unwritten expectation there that you need to like give up your whole life and personal time at the drop of a hat for the office. There's a lot of red flags that pop up when we're using the word family in relation to our job and our coworkers. This is a good one, and I've seen this one so many times. I've also experienced it. It's when you dangle in front of someone a promotion that isn't gonna come or not in the works for months and months and months and months. I feel like this is a corporate scam that keeps people around. It's kind of not long-term sustainable, but short-term retention strategy, if you will. It's, oh, no, your promotion's coming. We're working on it. And then it's like 4 months go by, 5 months go by, 6 months go by, 7 months go by. And it's like, so that promotion we were talking about, where are things at with that? Oh, no, it's coming. And we're working on it. This is going to be title. And you just keep getting like fed a little bit more information each time. So you really think it's coming. But then the time you realize that it's been like 6, 7, 8 months of this promotion, and which is why you've been staying, yet you've been receiving your same title and pay for the last 6 months, but in your mind you're like, no, but I'm getting promoted. It's just a mind game that I feel like happens so often. So I feel like if you are, there's so many managers out there that are really rooting for their employees in the back end that, they're working on getting them a promotion, they're working on title changes, but there's so many levels of approval that has to go through. And at the end of the day, not all managers have decision-making power over promotions and salary and compensation and all of that. I think managers truly are fighting for their employees for the most part, the good managers. Things just take so long that it kind of go back and forth of like, well, when should you say something? When is it too early to say something that just becomes more frustrating than anything when things aren't actually getting done? Versus waiting till it's truly almost a promotion, like contract letter ready in hand, and then you kind of tell people. I feel like that feels obviously way better than the other side, because then I'm like, well, is this just a strategy to get me to stay around, or is this actually coming? And then it gets a little bit like red flaggy. This one always gets me. It is when leadership or people in power in a company treat you as less than a human because of the title that you hold. There becomes this like superiority complex of, well, I'm the VP or director of this and you're an entry level, whatever. And then you start to treat that person at a human level as less than you are. This is like one of the biggest corporate scams. And I think you can tell a lot about someone's character, how they treat people who don't sit at the same level of them on a human level. Like, of course, there's things where certain people at certain levels aren't going to be privy to the same information or part of the same discussions or decision-making processes. And I understand that totally. But it's like on a basic human level. Like I was talking to this individual last week, and she had said that she was working in this organization and she was new to it and went into this meeting room and sat in a chair, didn't think anything of it, it's just a chair and they're all the same. And apparently it was someone in leadership's chair that they always sit in. They walked into this room and kicked her out of this chair because it was their chair. And I just feel like in that moment, you could tell everything you need to tell about what kind of, I'm not even gonna call them a leader, what kind of boss or manager or person in a higher level position, what kind of person they really are by how they respond to that situation, because at the end of the day, it's a chair. You don't become less than by sitting in a different chair. When people in power kind of get this like superiority complex about them that no one else is as good as them and so they can treat people crappier because of the title that they hold, one of the biggest corporate scams to me. And I think character speaks really strongly about people in leadership positions. And I think that people who hold good character in leadership positions, it shows with how their teams respect them, turnover rates, and how much people are willing to, I guess, have their back, show up. Yeah, like I could make a whole other video on this, but anyways, that's a corporate scam. This one might actually be illegal too, but it's when companies have a donation benefit, if you will, or, okay, let's back it up. You know how some companies have reward systems? You reach so many years of the company and then they're like, oh, this is the catalog of stuff that you can get, or you can donate to a charity of your choice in your name. That piece we're focusing on here. I think that that's a scam because one, the company's making the donation, sure, it's in your name, but the company's getting the tax write-off for that. And so it's actually in their best interest when companies make donations in your name because it becomes their tax write-off, versus if you were to take that money and donate in your own name, it becomes your own tax write-off. And so I think there actually might be like some legalities to that and maybe a bit of fraud going on. But besides the point, corporate scam, if a company's ever like, oh, we're gonna make a donation in your name, charity of your choice, just know that they're getting that tax return on their side. They're getting that charitable receipt to the company's name. Do with that information what you will. I know this is going to be a popular one, but when there's a happy hour, a team building, a social event for work outside of working hours. I think team bonding and team cohesiveness are very, very important parts of working in a team, absolutely. And they should be given adequate time during working hours because it's part of work, right? And so having a mandatory event, happy hour, what have you, team building exercise outside of working hours, it's working still, but on your personal time, not compensated. There's like this weird guilt where it's like, well, you should be going to this because it's part of your work, even though it's outside of work hours, because it's technically, in your brain, like, oh, we're getting, apps somewhere, we're going bowling, or we're going, I don't even know, whatever you do with your company. Oh, but that's like a fun personal thing, logically personal time, but then it's work related, so it's like work time, but should I be getting paid for that? Well, the root of what you're doing is team building and team cohesiveness, and it's part of work. That to me is a big, big corporate red flag we've got to watch out for. So team building activities, fantastic, during work hours. And then that's a good segue into the next one, which is unpaid overtime. I know someone's gonna be like, well, if you're salary, that doesn't really happen. Okay, I don't know what your contract looks like, but from my experience and what I've seen, even in a salaried contract, it says it's based on a 40-hour work week. And so 40 hours is what the salary is being paid on, X amount of weeks. That's what I've seen, so that's my perception of what I'm going off of. Unpaid overtime, I think that there's, this kind of unwritten rule when it comes to salaries employees, or unwritten expectation that a lot of people hold, that there's no such thing as unpaid overtime because you could technically have to work any time of the day and that's part of your salary. I just don't believe that to be true from what I've seen. If there's an expectation for a company to constantly be putting in more time, I think that is a bit of a corporate scam. It probably boils down to them just the lack of resource planning or not wanting to budget for the amount of resource it takes to get a certain amount of work done. I think unpaid overtime is a scam because one, your personal time is so valuable, and we already spend so much of our day at work, so taking any more time from our personal lives to allocate to work is bizarre when you really think about it, because at the end of the day, you work to live, you don't live to work, and so the life that you're funding is waiting for you. Don't give away your time for free. It just doesn't make sense to me. And if there's a lot of companies who try to push this a little bit, and don't get me wrong, there's times when yes, you're gonna be working a little bit later some days, some weeks are gonna be a little bit longer, but that shouldn't be the norm. That should be the exception and not the rule. I've had such amazing leaders in the past who basically would collect the loo time and allocate it to be used at a different time, or just kind of have this trust and adult level respect of like, oh yeah, you working a little bit more today, and so if you show up a little bit later tomorrow, like that's normal, and not question, you're getting all your work done and whatnot. Well, that's all I had for you today, Work Besties. Corporate scams, corporate red flags, if you will. If you've got another one to add to this list, please comment in the comment section below, because there's nothing I enjoy more than reading corporate scams. So I appreciate you being here as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Toodaloo.